how many people absolutely love hot sauce. That's probably the thing that I find most fun about the whole process is that engagement with the customers, and you'll be able to talk about their favourite products and their favourite chilies and their attempts to make their own and their uses.
This is The Producers. I'm Anthony Huckstep. The Fermentalists and its range of hot sauces was initially a weekend hobby, but positive feedback from friends and family encouraged Kosta Papanikitas and his partners to continue developing new recipes and expand the range. The team still make everything by hand in Sydney, but things are a little bit bigger than they envisaged.
So we're actually based in the heart of the Sydney CBD. We, in 2020, took over a basement space that was intended at the time to expand our existing catering and retail business that we've been operating since 2004 in Sydney. Unfortunately, COVID hit pretty quickly, and we realised that the space was excess to requirements at the time. So we took up the opportunity to grow the hot sauce business within that space.
After a career in the corporate world, Kosta realised the food world he grew up in was where he wanted to take his career.
Straight out of uni, I actually started in the corporate world, working with one of the biggest fast-moving consumer goods companies in Australia. And oddly enough, unlike a lot of people, I really enjoyed the process and my time there. And I think I learned a heck of a lot. But it got to a point where after about 10 years in the business, I realised that all the people that I aspired to, or looked up to in the business, in the corporate world, actually really looked up to and aspired to be more like, my family, who had owned and operated cafes and restaurants and retail businesses all their lives. Oddly enough, our parents always wanted us to go to university to be, less like them and more like the workers that they were serving on a daily basis. And it was that light bulb moment when I realized that actually, the grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side. So after a period of 10 years, I decided that I wanted to have a go at running my own business and have that the ability to maybe create something for myself and my family. And it was essentially on a platter for me, given that the family had been in business for so many years. So I had opportunities that maybe some other people didn't have. So that was 2012, and we've been operating in this current location. Well, this current location, the family had been operating since 2004. I took over in 2012. And over that time, sort of growing the business into different areas. So initially it was really just like a breakfast and lunch takeaway business, and we expanded into quite a significant way into a catering operation. And in 2020, we also took on a second site. So from corporate world into hospitality, across sort of different facets of the hospitality business, but now continue to do all of that as well as running the hot sauce business.
Like many incredible initiatives over the last few years, the hot sauce was born during the uncertainty of COVID.
The hot sauce business actually started in around 2015. A good friend of mine by the name of Sam Scambioni was an enthusiast of fermentation and fermenting all things, and developed a fantastic recipe for a habanero hot sauce. And that was the beginning of the Fermentalists. Sam sort of worked on the business until early 2020, when he decided that he didn't really have the heart to continue growing the business, or necessarily the time. Probably had the heart, but less so the time, because he had other priorities at the time. And as I mentioned earlier, COVID had hit. So we went from a thriving retail and catering business upstairs to having a lot of spare time, and that was great for being a little bit more creative and a little bit more strategic. So Chris, my partner, and I decided to take on the opportunity and see what we could do with the Fermentalist business, and that involved growing the brand as much as possible, broadening the product range. So initially it was really just two products. It was a habanero and a Carolina Reaper hot sauce, and on occasion Sam would produce some fermented chili salt. We now have 19 different products in the range across hot sauces, salts, rubs, seasonings, jams, and condiments. So that's really been our labour of love for the last 2 years. It's now our third year of operation.
As Kosta explains, they may make hot sauces, but it's more about flavour than Scoville units.
We really don't play in that hot sauce world very much. We early on decided there were enough guys out there doing some crazy stuff when it came to hot sauces, and that was almost easy. I think the challenge is being able to create a range of condiments that people who didn't think they liked chili would be able to appreciate. And so early on, Chris, my partner, came up with the tagline for fans of flavour. And a lot of people we've encountered don't necessarily associate chili with flavour, but anyone who's had a good habanero hot sauce just realises how intensely sweet it can actually be. It's got these beautiful fruit-like characteristics. So if we were to just create a Carolina Reaper hot sauce, which was diluted to a very small extent, we'd be knocking out a lot of people. But that's not fun, and it takes away from ultimately what you're trying to do, which is enhance the dish that you're adding it to. That said, there are some people who have absolute iron guts, and I know even globally, I think Australia has some of the best competitors on the global stage, but they don't really come to us for that. There's a lot of other people in the market, and look, we don't add any capsaicin extracts to make our products hot. We can only get our product to as hot as the chili that we use is. But there's some crazy hot products out there. It's one of those things where a lot of people come and ask us about our Scoville unit rating on our various sources, but unless if you actually get the product and the chilies rated, it's really a band. And what I prefer to look at the Scoville unit for is a ranking of chilies. So we know that the Carolina Reaper sits at the top of the tree, but in recent times there's been Carolina Reapers that are being produced predominantly for competition that are twice and three times the Scoville unit rating that is typically used for Carolina Reapers. But you have a range, from the capsicum right at the bottom, which is really, really low in the Scoville unit rating, all the way up to habaneros, which are the beginning of what is known as the super hots. And above that, you start talking about, like the ghost peppers, which a lot of people know. And then right at the top is the Carolina Reaper. So it's really just a rating of the heat, the relative heat. But as I said, within that, one of the things that we really struggled with early on was the fact that there was so much variation from the different batches of chilies that we were getting. And possibly because of my previous corporate days, we were absolutely adamant about creating a consistent product. Over time, we've become really, really comfortable and even embrace the fact that we're working with organic produce here. And one of the beauties is that as artisans, small batch producers, is that our consumers really respect and appreciate the fact that we're working with raw produce here, and there is variation, depending on the seasonality of the product and the supply. If you're not aware, chilies have been really, really tough to come by over the last sort of 12 months. There's been a lot of challenges with regards to flooding and entire crops being lost. So we've had to work with a number of different producers across the sort of eastern seaboard all the way up to far north Queensland, and quite a significant variation in terms of the sort of produce that we've been getting.
The fermentation process to make hot sauce has its challenges, but as Kosta explains, it's about getting the right balance.
Look, the actual fermentation process is generally pretty easy and simple once you get the hang of it. You'll make mistakes early on. There'll be spoilage. I don't care how big or small you are. It's an It's an imperfect process, but essentially it's the use of mixing up chilies, and there's different ways in which you can ferment. So we use a mash, and that mash creates a perfect environment together with salt to create a fermentation state. We ferment our products for a minimum of 4 weeks, but typically sort of 12 up to 50 weeks. That fermentation process gives a complexity and depth of flavour that, in our opinion, is unrivaled. The challenges that come with the fermentation process is that you can, even if you follow the same process time and time again, there's environmental elements that can impact the product in that fermentation state. And if you don't get it right in the first sort of 2 to 3 weeks, you can lose entire batches, and we've lost a number of entire batches. You then have the challenge that you have to stabilize the product in the end of it. So we try as much as possible to offer a completely raw product, which is beneficial from a fermentation. A lot of people recognise the sort of health benefits of fermentation and the positive impact that natural bacteria can have on your gut health. But we also do have to balance that with the shelf stability of the product.
Although a range of hot sauces is the core line, there are other condiments too.
At the moment, we have the dripper range, which is the flavour of the chili. The intent is that we have a mild, a medium, and a hot. So the jalapeno, which is the mildest chili that we use, the habanero, which is my favourite, pound for pound, in my opinion, the best chili on the market, and the Carolina Reaper. But it's literally just fermented chili with a little bit of garlic, and after that fermentation process we strain it, so we just have the delicious juices, and we add some aged apple cider vinegar, so it's an expression of the chili. We don't add anything else to it. We then have a flavours range, which so we've got a couple of everyday sauces, and they're intended to be accessible to everybody every day of the week, irrespective of the dish that you're serving it with, and they're just beautiful, well-rounded, medium heat sauces. We also then have probably my personal favourite, which is the smoked garlic and honey habanero. I love honey. It's a natural sweetener, and I love garlic, and I love smoked goods. So I decided to bring all that, and that was like a COVID experiment, right? We had a lot of garlic left over, and we had a smoker, and we had habaneros, and we would chuck it all together and see what comes of it. And for me, it's my favourite sauce. The other one that came straight out of COVID was, lockdown hit, as a lot of people in the industry experienced. There was a lot of produce that was going to waste. We had some jalapenos and we had kiwis, and we decided to ferment them together. And it's this beautiful, fresh, citric, mild sauce with just like a cracked pepper finish that intrigues a lot of people, and it's one of those things where you either love it or you hate it. So that's the hot sauce range. We also have a range of fermented chili salts. So we actually use the extract. When I was telling you earlier about the straining process, we have this mash left over, and it's beautiful chili that's been fermented, but we don't use in our sauces. We then dehydrate that for about 24 hours, and we added some beautiful Murray River sea salt flakes, and that's a fantastic chili salt that you can add to any dish. We even we have a number of bars like Icebergs who use it for their chili margaritas. And then we have a range of condiments. So we're about to launch our fermented chili relish, the chili jam, which has quickly become like a cult favorite of so many of our customers, and also one of my favorite condiments, the fermented chilies in oil. So just literally 3 of our favorite chilies fermented for 12 weeks at an absolute minimum, and then we just add a little bit of oil to it, pair that up with a beautiful steak and a lovely mustard, lemon on top, and it's an ideal dish for me.
Every day is different, but the interaction with customers is at the heart of everything they do.
It depends on whether I'm upstairs or downstairs, but it's a juggernaut. so we continue to run the hospitality businesses, and as we're coming out of that COVID period, it's increasingly becoming busier, and we have 2 people who are sort of part-time working on the fermenting business, and that's just about making sure that we are planning ahead, because we really do have to plan sort of 3 to 6 months ahead in terms of our production, and we may be fermenting today, straining tomorrow, bottling the day after, and then hopefully somewhere along the line labeling and getting it out to our consumers. So I focus predominantly on the production and the wholesale side of the business. My partner Chris works on a lot of the brand marketing and direct to consumer distribution. The majority of our customers are based in New South Wales, and that's fantastic, because as much as we possibly can, because we never intended on, and we still don't intend on, being the biggest hot sauce producer. It's really just about working with amazing individuals. So I would say that, look, more than half of our food service partners we will hand deliver to. As much as possible, we will get out and we will see our customers and engage with our customers, and that's how we've grown it. It's really the personal relationships that we have with these people that we love and try and nurture as much as we can. But we do have retailers all across Australia. So as far as WA with Main Liquor and Victoria, we work with the likes of Queen's Harvest. In the past, we've done some stuff with Saint Ali. So we have about 50 to 60 retail outlets across Australia. But the majority of our customers will be based in New South Wales. And then we ship as far as we've got a very loyal customer in Singapore. But we will ship globally if the opportunity is there.
As Kosta explains, playing in the hot sauce market can lead to some eye-watering experiences.
We went to the Easter show with the family, and of course, as there has been for many, many years, there's a number of hot sauce exhibitors there, and I decided to try every hot sauce on the table that I could, from the mildest all the way up to the hottest. And I didn't know at the time, of course, that many hot sauces, different chilies, have a bit of a slow burn. So by the time I got to the end, I asked the guy for a double. I should have taken the warning, because he was wearing gloves by that point. So walking out of the show, out of the Woolworths Dome, it was everyone sort of looking at me going, "Is he okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm cool, I'm good." But 15 minutes later, I had 2 paramedics on me. I was taking my shoes off. I was lying down, didn't make it any more comfortable. Standing up wasn't great. It was. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Sad to say, I probably haven't learned my lesson, because I've had a couple of similar experiences, but they're part of the process of understanding the produce that we're working with. There was one occasion where I decided that I had to respect the raw produce and took a giant bite out of a Carolina Reaper. Again, not something that I recommend, but looking back on it now, I think we can laugh about it.
Hot sauce has become a global phenomenon, and as Kosta explains, it's a category that has cult status.
How many people absolutely love hot sauce? That's probably the thing that I find most fun about the whole process, is that engagement with the customers, and you'll be able to talk about their favourite products and their favourite chilies and their attempts to make their own and their uses. But just, the absolute loyalist to hot sauce. There are some people who have it on everything, and that's really surprised me. In terms of the production process, I think that I probably wasn't surprised by it, because being in hospitality, you know how tough it really is. But I, take my hat off to so many of the small producers who have stuck it through. It looks really easy on the outside, but in terms of the capital required to plan ahead and put money behind simple things like your branding. When we recently updated all our labels, it was a case of 20 different labels, and that was design, production, paying for all of that, and then relabeling 20 different products, trying to get up to scale in order to make it economically viable Those sort of things are the stories that most consumers don't realise behind that bottle. But I think, there's a lot of businesses, small businesses, that don't necessarily want to become big, and I really respect the hustle, the grind they do, and the love and passion they put into their product every single day.
Being able to work with an array of different professionals has helped take the brand into new areas.
Probably the first one is the experiences that I've had working with some absolutely amazing businesses. So, a couple of names that come to mind: Julian Cincotta of Butter, who is an absolute idol of mine for the way he works, the way he thinks. He's a guy that I have on speed dial, and someone who's really helped me. But partnering up with someone like him, someone like Patrick Friesen of the Applejack Group, we just launched a hot sauce for their Foresters bar in Surrey Hills, and we're now serving our fermented chilies in Bob and Tone, which is part of the Applejack Group. Being able to work with amazing people like that has been awesome for me, and learning so much from these people. But then I'd say our first exhibit at the Easter show. So given, the punishment that I took at the Easter show, I decided that the only way to overcome that was to actually get our own stand there. And it was one of those moments where you realise just how much joy your product can bring to people. And it wasn't the size of the event, the number of products we sold. It was just that engagement, that one-on-one engagement, and realising that people really did love the product that we were producing. And that spurred myself and Chris on to work harder and longer to try and expand the range as much as we could and get it out to as many hands as we possibly could. It was a first opportunity, because many people, when they're selling predominantly to food service businesses or online, you don't get to see your customers' faces when they experience your product. So that that really shifted my mindset, and something that I remember fondly to this day.
The move into hot sauces has broadened Kosta's understanding of the power of customer engagement, and it's led to one of the most exciting small brands to emerge out of COVID. This is The Producers, a Deep in the Weeds production. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of producers, farmers, makers, and growers, the true lifeblood of the food industry. Follow us on Instagram at Producers Podcast, or email us at producerspodcast@deepintheweeds.com.au.